Tonight, a critical and surprising message from daughters as their mother fights for life after a domestic violence stabbing. Another chance for Daniel Kerr, free tonight despite a list of brutal attacks on his ex. All they wanted was a blood test. A little boy dead. His parents say they were ignored by Joondalup Hospital. Channel 9 stars turn on their own boss over an airport fiasco. The frantic search for a TV doctor missing in Paradise. And the Eagles' 1994 Premiership heroes celebrate a milestone.
Live from Perth, 7 News with Rick Ardon.
Good evening and welcome to 7 News. The daughters of a domestic violence victim have a critical message tonight. They're urging anyone who's close to the edge to get help before harming a loved one. They spoke about their mother's fight for life with Elizabeth Creasy.
This is a place Stephanie Mountford and Caroline Grant never thought they'd be, by their mother's side at Royal Perth Hospital.
3 surgeries on her, between her stomach, her hand and her throat, but she's so far been all stitched back together.
Paulette Mountford is in intensive care, the grandmother of 2 treated for multiple stab wounds, allegedly at the hands of her long-term partner Christopher Sullivan at their Gooseberry Hill home on Tuesday night.
I don't want to say what, but when you tell someone to shut the f*** up.
Charged with attempted murder, he told a court on Wednesday he intends to plead guilty. But this next part might shock you. Paulette's daughters don't blame the 72-year-old.
They loved each other. Chris always bought Mum flowers.
Beautiful jewellery. He spoiled her rotten. There was no premeditation to the act. There was no, I've gone out to get this, to just
snap decision.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
They want their pain to be a lesson to other families. Seek help before it gets to this.
He wasn't a bad person, so I guess the help needs to be for both sides.
There should be more of where men can go, where there is no stigma.
Paulette is still listed as critical. She needs constant monitoring 24 hours a day. But her daughters are hopeful and have started to notice small improvements in her condition.
Paulette sustained many injuries across multiple areas of her body and has involved multiple very complex surgeries and a very large team to help care for her.
For now, Paulette's being kept in an induced coma.
You never think someone would actually go out to kill a family member. It's horrifying.
Elizabeth Creasy, 7 News.
Heartbroken parents from suburban Butler are tonight demanding answers after their little boy died at Joondalup Hospital. They claim they begged doctors for a blood test for their toddler's lingering fever, but the request was refused.
On the way, he asked me to put his favourable song to play. That's the last good memory we have.
Shanjoy and Sharashorty Dar lost their youngest son, Shandipan, at Joondalup Hospital 11 weeks ago. What they gained today is the knowledge he could still be alive.
They destroyed my family. We are alive due to our other son.
The seemingly healthy 21-month-old developed a fever after a routine vaccine at Key Largo Medical Centre in February. His parents say over a month they repeatedly revisited the practice and were told a post-vaccine temperature was normal. They were refused a blood test and Shandipan was given antibiotics. On March 22, in desperation, they took him to Joondalup Health Campus. Shandipan was unable to complete a urine test and they say over 6 hours their pleas for a blood test were again ignored. Then they were sent home. 2 days later, they returned with the toddler, now coughing. A scan revealed he had pneumonia and within hours he was dead. Today, the coroner's report was finally sent to the family. Shandipan died from leukemia complications. It's a common childhood cancer. The rate of survival, if treated, is 94%. It's easily detected with a blood test.
They clearly expressed that a blood test was requested, but our staff didn't pick up those cues, or certainly when we interviewed them, didn't say that a blood test was refused.
I will be more than happy to demand a video coverage of our staying in that Joondalup hospital, so all of my statement will be proven as truth.
Shandipan's 4-year-old brother, now an only child, won't accept his sibling is gone and often asks when he's coming home. Today his parents told me it is too traumatic repeatedly explaining, so they've stripped their family home of photos while they hope to process their grief.
We continue to roll out training for our healthcare workers on how to work with communities where English is a second language.
My accent and English is more than enough. I do not consider that they have done something intentionally to us due to our race, colour or language. This is what they do to everyone.
Alice Murray, 7 News.
A star sportsman with a criminal record today avoided jail for domestic violence. Daniel Kerr used a chainsaw to cut his ex-partner's bed in half and choked her while she held their baby. But his brutality wasn't enough to lock him up again. Francesca Danuccio explains why.
Daniel Kerr returning to court, a place he's no stranger to. His brother Levi in support, his parents too. Kerr engaged in physical, verbal, coercive and financial abuse against an ex-partner between 2013 and 2019, a relationship marred by drug and alcohol abuse. On one occasion, Kerr punched her while holding keys, then licked the blood off them. He also threw the woman against a wall, used a chainsaw to cut her bed in half and choked her while she was holding their 5-month-old child.
What do you have to say to your victim and mother of your child? The former premiership player was diagnosed with schizophrenia in 2022 and psychological reports revealed Kerr had been suffering from mental illness years before committing the family violence crimes against his ex-partner.
Are you confident your son won't reoffend? The 41-year-old has had several run-ins with the law, from being passed out on a Kalgoorlie street to setting his parents' house on fire.
Daniel, are you happy with today's outcome?
Today, given a chance to avoid jail, but one mistake in the next 2 years and he's back behind bars. Francesca Danuccio, 7 News.
The chairman of Nine Entertainment is now facing serious allegations of assault. Peter Costello denies any fault after a nasty run-in with a journalist, but even some of the network's biggest on-air stars see it differently.
Nine Entertainment chairman Peter Costello, making front-page news in his own papers.
Mr Costello, did you assault a journalist at Canberra Airport?
He says he didn't.
I did not lay a finger or a fist or anything else on it.
Approached at Canberra Airport by News Corp journalist Liam Mendes, asked about Nine's sexual harassment crisis, here is what happened.
Don't. You've just assaulted me. You've just pushed me. It's all on camera. Mr Costello.
Mr Costello stopping to pick up his coat, laughing. His version.
As I walked past him, he walked back into an advertising placard and he fell over.
Eyewitnesses, though, saw it differently.
He hit you about here and I watched you fall over there. I was just out having a smoke on the phone.
Yeah, okay. He was trying to say that I'd walked into there, but I don't think...
You got two guys that saw shunting,
Yeah, so you guys saw that?
Yeah. We saw it.
Peter Costello was in Canberra last night to open Nine's new press gallery office. Today, Nine's board had a scheduled committee meeting and, suddenly, a new reputational issue to discuss. From Nine's own radio stars...
Boss, you've had a shocker.
That is a very, very bad look for Peter Costello.
Support from Peter Dutton.
I've never known Peter to be aggressive.
And on Nine's Today Show, a dig.
Is there a job going at Channel 9 as the chairman?
Wow, he's gone early, Bill.
Too soon.
What does Peter Costello think of suggestions he should stand down?
Rubbish.
Knocking that right over. Mark Riley, 7 News.
A desperate search is unfolding as we go to air tonight for celebrity doctor Michael Mosley. The 67-year-old vanished on the Greek island of Symi. He was last seen heading for a coastal walk on a rocky trail. As search crews pour in from across Greece, they're struggling to find any trace of him.
In the skies above paradise, helicopters scan the pristine coastline, dreading a grim find.
Yeah, this I find utterly unbelievable, I have to say.
Celebrity doctor Michael Mosley missing. His food revolution, including the 5-2 diet, has changed lives around the world.
I want to wake up the nation and its movers and shakers.
He arrived in Simi on Tuesday with his wife. The next morning, they travelled to St Nicholas Beach. 1:30 p.m, he walked back to his holiday home alone and without his phone. Usually a 20-minute hike, but in searing heat. 6 hours later, his wife sounded the alarm, police fearing he'd fallen from a height. Islanders sharing this photo, asking, "Have you seen this man?" But the massive search is plagued by confusion. Witnesses claim they saw Mosley speaking with others after his walk.
All the rescue teams of the island are looking to find him.
Mosley's mission often took him to Australia. He joined Ray Kelly in the fight against diabetes.
When I got a chance to work with him, I jumped at it. He definitely sort of speaks to the researchers and tries to get a great understanding of how the research actually works in the real world.
But tonight it's his family and countless followers left desperate for answers. Ashley Mullaney, 7 News.
An illegal gambling operation has been exposed in Perth's north. Cash, chips and sophisticated equipment were all seized from a high-stakes poker event. It's the third bust in the past 12 months.
Hands on your head, hands on your heads. On your head.
Forced to fold as the tables turn.
We're executing a warrant, a gaming act. You're under arrest, participating in an illicit game.
Hidden in Wangara's industrial area, a sophisticated man cave that doubles as a suspected illegal gaming house. The men sitting at a professional-grade poker table, tens of thousands in casino-style gaming chips and almost $3,000 in cash. All of it seized. Police say the brains behind the underground operation is a gaming equipment supplier. 2 others are professional dealers. Their licences now revoked.
Because that person's involved in the industry, knows how to get people who can be dealers and run a professional style gaming event.
As to what sets it apart from a harmless social poker night.
It's about conduct of the gambling activity for profit. So essentially, this was an operation which we would allege was aimed at the organiser making money out of conducting the operation.
Not in this case, but it can be used by organised criminals looking to launder money. This is the third Perth bust in the last 12 months. Police say so far more than $190,000 has been seized. Rebecca Petroska, 7 News.
The Albanese government has moved to toughen Australia's migration laws. It will scrap rules that allow foreign-born criminals with family here to avoid being deported. The controversial Direction 99 will be repealed in 2 weeks and replaced with a new order that prioritises community safety.
After weeks of pressure and calls for his head, the Immigration Minister attempts to clean up the mess.
Today I've signed Ministerial Direction 110.
Replacing his old Direction 99, which softened Australia's migration laws, directing the Administrative Appeals Tribunal to consider foreign-born criminals' ties to Australia as a primary factor when reviewing visa cancellations.
There are people who have fallen victim to these criminals who have stayed in our country who should have been deported,
including murderers, rapists and pedophiles.
The new revised direction will make crystal clear that the Australian government expects community protection to be given greater weight.
Effectively reneging on a promise Anthony Albanese made to former New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern to stop deporting Kiwi criminals who'd spent most of their lives in Australia.
It's just not right that we think that people who have no connection to New Zealand are deported to New Zealand.
The new directive won't come into effect for another 2 weeks. In the meantime, around 10 visa cases will be decided under the old rules. The Minister watching those closely, revealing,
since the beginning of last week, I've cancelled 40 visas.
But the opposition's not convinced the new order goes far enough.
It continues to have ties to the Australian community as a primary consideration, and that will lead the AAT to make decisions like they have been before.
Keeping the pressure on.
Do you expect the job, Minister, over the winter break?
Rob Scott, 7 News.
A cold-hearted boyfriend will spend almost 4 years in jail for trying to steal money from his partner's superannuation fund just hours after her sudden death. Travis Barnard used his girlfriend's phone to try to gain access to around $400,000 in 2019. The victim's relatives say they have been through hell.
It was just shocking. You know, you hear one thing and then a week later it's something else, and you just can't comprehend that anyone would act in that manner.
The judge said there was a high risk the Woodbridge man would re-offend. D-Day veterans have issued warnings about the horrors of war as world leaders say the lessons from 80 years ago matter now more than ever. 1 million people have gathered on the Normandy coast in France to mark the anniversary of the massive Allied campaign, with rumblings of war in Europe heard.
By the beaches of Normandy, those of the greatest generation return. Once they were barely adults fighting to free a continent, today applauded by presidents, princes,
very nice to meet you, Prince William,
prime ministers and a forever grateful people. Along the French coast, multiple services commemorating a most mighty campaign.
Here you came to join your efforts with our own soldiers and to make France a free nation. And you are back here today, at home, if I may say.
160,000 Allied troops sent by sea and air to defeat Nazism. 10,000 killed, wounded or injured in a single day. Watching from the air, 19-year-old Australian Max Barich.
We'd been bombing on the coast and we're heading back west of Cherbourg Peninsula. And I had a marvellous view of the channel with over 5,000 ships there. Amazing.
Later shot down, captured by the Nazis and freed, Max turns 100 this year.
Well, I suppose it's just an example of what can be done to try and retain this lifestyle that we have. It would certainly have been a different lifestyle if the Nazi people had taken over.
If the debt paid by an entire generation to fight tyranny appears overwhelming, that's because it was. The message here, 8 decades on, democracy again needs defending. Volodymyr Zelensky, a modern-day wartime leader embraced by veterans.
Oh, you're the saviour of the people.
The US president warning,
we will not walk away.
100-year-old Harold Terrans hoping the sacrifice was not in vain.
I come here to pay my respects to the 9,634 buddies of mine that are buried right in back of me. War is disgusting, and I am an advocate of democracy, and I'll go anywhere in the world at my own expense to help preserve peace.
A victory valued 80 years on, a peace feeling fragile. In Normandy, France, Hugh Whitfeld, 7 News.
It's Friday night. Sam Jolly's joining us live now. Sam, how's the weekend looking?
Well, Rick, we have another cold front moving through on Sunday. We could get up to 10 millimetres of rain, maybe a shower or two tomorrow, mostly north of Perth. And yesterday's cold front certainly soaked parts of the metro area. The heavy downpours caused flooding across many of our major roads. Dan Murphy's in Como faced a big clean-up this morning after rain started pouring in through the roof. The SES received 114 calls for help overnight at homes from Heathridge to Mandurah. The showers cleared this morning. We woke up to a city covered in fog. It didn't take too long to clear along with those showers. So we did have a mostly dry Friday to end the working week and a top of 20 degrees. We will have showers over the next 7 days. Nothing too major, but enough to boost that rainfall total, Rick, and I'll be back soon.
Thanks, Sam. Ahead tonight, a shocking school strike sparks fresh calls for a ceasefire in Gaza. Children among at least 40 people killed in an Israeli air attack on classrooms. Also tonight, who's to blame for all this mess in Bentley? Dementia's early warning, spotting the signs 9 years in advance. Later, old Holden's running out of time, why it's crunch time for a national icon. And the real-life baby reindeer star suing Netflix, how much she wants. There was quite a mess in Bentley this morning after a major crash. A vehicle hit a power pole, then a tree and finally a brick wall. The crash happened near the intersection of Leach and Albany highways around 1:15 this morning. Police say a 43-year-old was behind the wheel but fled the wreck armed with a knife. Officers found him a short time later. The driver was then taken to hospital by ambulance. Israel is being condemned tonight over an airstrike in central Gaza that's killed at least 40 people. Many of them are women and children. It claims Hamas terrorists were hiding in the school where thousands of homeless Palestinians were sheltering.
The dead wrapped in the blankets they'd been sleeping in, victims of a pre-dawn strike. Missiles hitting the top floors of the UN-run school, doubling as a place of refuge for families seeking safety. Here is where the United Nations say 6,000 Palestinians were sheltering. We were sleeping and suddenly the place fell on our heads, this boy says. I don't know what happened. Israel claims Hamas terrorists were among them.
Terrorists with blood on their hands.
Saying some were involved in the October 7 attack, leading the Israeli Defence Force to carry out what it called a precision strike on the classrooms on the second and third floor, claiming to have intelligence. At least 20 militants were using it as a base.
The terrorists inside this school were planning more attacks against Israelis, some of them imminent.
Women and children are believed to be among the dead.
14 children were killed. Those aren't terrorists. We expect them to be fully transparent in making that information public.
The strike adding to urgent calls for a ceasefire. The White House demanding Hamas accept the offer on the table, saying there's no time to lose. In the United States, David Woodward, 7 News.
22 tornadoes have been recorded across 5 US states, with at least one of them turning deadly. A 2-year-old boy was killed when a tree fell on the Michigan home where he and his mother were sleeping. In Maryland, around a dozen twisters struck. Many residents were left injured and trapped. Russia's latest attack on Ukraine's Kherson region has obliterated a giant hardware store. It was one of 5 strikes to hit the city, with residential buildings also damaged. The shopping centre targeted was no longer in use after being previously damaged in heavy attacks last year. That meant there were no deaths or injuries this time. The new test, which can determine your chance of developing dementia years in advance. Would you want to know, and can you reduce your risk? Details next. A life-changing moment for this year's Archibald Prize winner. SpaceX and Boeing lock horns in a race that's out of this world. And time is running out. How to make the most of tax changes before the end of the financial year.
You might have heard that you need $1 million to retire comfortably. Well, it's just not true. Super, tax, investments, estate planning, and how to get the most out of Centrelink. In the West's new video series, I'll share tricks and tips to give you the retirement you've been dreaming of. The West has you covered, so you can relax and retire ready.
2 people have been killed in a crash in our wheat belt. A Toyota Prado, Suzuki hatchback and a road train all collided just before 9 o'clock this morning. It happened on Brant Highway near Coolyalu, about 10 kilometres north of Cataby. A 12-year-old girl was also injured in the accident. Major crash are investigating. We're watching a space race right now that we haven't seen since the 1960s, when America and Russia raced each other to the moon. SpaceX successfully launched its mega rocket today and returned it to Earth, while Boeing was making giant steps of its own in outer space.
The world's most powerful rocket showing its force.
We have liftoff.
This is SpaceX's Starship making a smooth ascent. After 3 failed test flights, suspense was building. This time, the booster successfully separated from the spacecraft, both surviving re-entry.
Wow, what a light show so far.
Both splashing down into the Gulf of Mexico as planned.
And we have splashdown! Congratulations to the SpaceX team!
It wasn't flawless. Part of the spacecraft broke away on the way down.
How far can it go? That is the question.
But it's progress and expected to play an important role in NASA's plan to return astronauts to the moon. SpaceX founder Elon Musk is dreaming bigger, shooting for Mars. Today was a great day for humanity's future as a spacefaring civilization. It comes as his competitor Boeing reaches its own milestone.
Butch and Sunny have made their arrival.
It's Starliner successfully carrying 2 astronauts to the International Space Station, where they'll stay for the next 8 days. It's all part of NASA's plan to expand its use of commercial vessels to transport astronauts and cargo out of this world. In the United States, Smiley Hogan, 7 News.
Australian researchers are developing a world-leading test to detect dementia almost a decade in advance. It's a breakthrough that could help doctors stop the disease in its tracks.
Reflecting on happier times, this was Catherine Moyle and her husband Chris before his dementia diagnosis 8 years ago.
It's been a major change, a lot of grieving for what was, and now we try to make the best of every day.
It's a disease that affects up to 500,000 Australians. Now, world first research can predict dementia up to a decade in advance with 80% accuracy.
If it delivers on what it says it can do, then this is a very exciting breakthrough.
Doctors can analyse MRI scans to detect areas of the brain affected by Alzheimer's disease before the damage is done.
If we can slow down the process by another 10-15 years, that's huge. We can actually slow down so much it almost stops.
And help save lives.
If we use these drugs well before the onset of symptoms, we can potentially stop the symptoms ever developing so the person won't die of Alzheimer's disease.
Currently, there is no cure, but researchers say leading a healthy lifestyle, including eating well and regular exercise, can help reduce the risk.
We're going to be more likely to focus on these brain health promoting activities if we know that we are already in the first stages of developing dementia.
Ainsley Kosh, 7 News.
A portrait of celebrated Australian author Tim Winton has taken out this year's Archibald Prize, but the winning artist doesn't think her subject is as pleased as the judges.
No stranger to 1,000 words, but today was all about his picture.
Laura Jones for her portrait of Tim Winton.
Winning the $100,000 Archibald Prize.
What does this mean for you?
Oh, everything. It's so totally overwhelming and I'm so grateful. He's enchanted them with his books and words, but he's also an incredible environmental advocate, so we share that passion.
Using muted, paper-like colours to focus on his face.
What did he think?
He said he looked like he had the weight of the world on his shoulders, and I certainly tried to convey that. I don't think he loved it, I don't know.
The judges unanimous, calling it honest.
You feel that if you linger in front of the painting, you're going to learn something, an insight into Tim Winton.
As well as winning the prize this year, Laura Jones was also an Archibald subject, featuring in this work that also made the final.
Becoming just the 12th woman to win in its 104-year history, hanging alongside a gallery of finalists featuring artists, musicians, sports stars. Carolyn's portrait of actor Jacob Elordi getting global attention online.
The arts are being brought to people that would otherwise never experience art.
For the first time, Indigenous artists winning both the Sulman Subject Prize,
Naomi Kanchurini,
and the Wynne Landscape Prize.
Now I am crying, but this time with happiness.
All the finalists on display from tomorrow. Paul Kadak, 7 News.
The last Holdens on our roads are facing a major crunch. Ahead tonight, why they're running out of time and driving owners to desperation. Legal action launched over a popular new TV series. Plus, countdown to tax time, the super hacks that can help you maximise your return.
And coming up in sport, never forgotten and forever linked. The Eagles celebrate their 1994 heroes. Plus, David Warner answers his World Cup critics.
Now, Fuel Watch. Perth's petrol prices brought to you by Fuel Watch and 7 News.
The race is on to maximise your tax return before July 1. Tonight we have the super hacks you need to supersize your nest egg.
30-year-old Cody Drew is super savvy. The self-employed electrician has been putting an extra 4% into his retirement savings all year.
I'm putting money into super now because the tax cuts this year will be greater than next year.
It's not the only hack to supersize your super. You can contribute up to $27,500 annually and claim it as a tax deduction.
The tax deduction is greater this year than it will be next year. So if you put an extra $10,000 into super this year, you're going to get a bigger tax deduction for that, which is more money in your pocket now.
Now is also the time to salary sacrifice things like your car, pay health insurance and make charity donations. There are also benefits if you sell an investment property, unloading some of the capital gains into super.
If you have unused concessional contributions from your previous years, then you're able to top up your super, provided your super balance is below $500,000.
Instead of spending your tax cut from July 1, experts say put it in your super fund. An extra $100 a month over the next 25 years will add around $60,000 to your retirement savings. While Host Plus is the best performing super fund over the past 10 years, you don't need an industry fund for success.
The ups and downs don't really matter. What really matters is how much you're going to have when you do retire.
And if you've been slack with your super, it's never too late to catch up.
It's either you put it in, you invest it into your future, or you are invested into the now.
Samantha Heathwood, 7 News.
The real-life drama surrounding baby reindeer keeps growing. The woman claiming to be inspiration for fictional stalker Martha is suing Netflix. Fiona Harvey is seeking $250 million in damages, citing defamation, negligence and emotional distress. It's a move Harvey flagged in her interview with Piers Morgan. Netflix says it will defend the matter. Billionaire Clive Palmer has hit troubled waters after his $40 million super yacht struck a sandbar on the Gold Coast last night. The mining magnate wasn't on board, but it took 4 hours for the tide to rise and a tugboat to free the super yacht. It also ran aground in Singapore last year. Maritime Safety Queensland is now investigating. Time now for a check on the markets with finance editor Gemma Acton. Gemma, how has the share market closed out the week?
Well, we've had a solid end to a robust week, boosted by news that central banks in both Canada and Europe cut interest rates in recent days. Meanwhile, today, insurance giant QBE locked in its highest close in 13 years. The Aussie dollar has taken another step higher and closer towards 67 US cents, while iron ore had a strong session overnight. And nearly 1 million Australian workers hold multiple jobs. It is a new record and equates to 6.7% of all employed people. A higher proportion of women than men hold multiple jobs, while 20 to 24-year-olds are the most likely cohort to be working in more than one place.
It was once the nation's top-selling car. Now enthusiasts are battling to keep the Holden Commodore on the road. Why the Aussie icon is running out of time. Don't miss that story soon on 7 News. But first, Adrian Barich has Friday Night Sport, and 30 years on, the Eagles celebrate arguably their greatest team, Barich.
Yes, Rick, I think so. After all, the 1994 premiers, they did win the grand final by 80 points. And today, West Coast royalty gathered in Perth. No longer coach and captain, but soulmates. 3 decades on, it's party time for this famous team. And the USA shocks the cricket world with a stunning win over a subcontinent powerhouse. Dual West Coast Premiership coach Mick Malthouse has some advice for current coach Adam Simpson. In Perth for the Eagles' 30-year Premiership reunion, Malthouse has advised Simo to stop looking in the rear view mirror. Here's Anna Hay.
Forever linked.
Your Premiership captain number 24, John Worsfold, and your Premiership coach in Michael Malthouse.
3 decades on, and it's like no time has passed.
Pretty special group of people involved in the not only the 92 but definitely the 94 premiership as well.
While club greats reminisced on their past triumphs, the current squad hit the track for this morning's captain's run, hoping to one day achieve the same success. Mick Malthouse had this advice for current coach Adam Simpson.
The rear vision mirror's happened, so what's in front of you is in front of you.
And I don't say you can keep starting again, but to learn from the past is so important. If you ignore the past, you'll commit the same errors. So learn from the past, but take it forward. Just keep chipping away. It's not one game at a time. It's not one quarter at a time. It's one contest at a time.
The Eagles face North Melbourne tomorrow. Simpsons preparing for battle.
Do you really think we're that much different than North Melbourne? That's probably the question. We've actually seen some real development with our players and our form this year, but there's no, our best we think's good enough, but I reckon North are saying the same.
Mid-season draftee Jack Hutchinson will make his debut after kicking 5 goals in the waffle last weekend. He'll play alongside 2022 and 2023 mid-season recruits Jai Cully and Ryan Marrick.
I think Jai took him 16 days, so he took his time. Ryan was 10 and I think Jack might be 11 or something like that, so it's not the first time we've done it, but yeah, his rise to senior footy was... You think it's quick, but he's 22, so he's done it the hard way.
It's Cully's first game in 398 days after he ruptured his ACL in round 8 last year. In a blow, star midfielder Tim Kelly will miss his second consecutive game with a hip and knee complaint.
Yeah, it's probably more severe than I thought. That with just the rest of his body, so this week was not an option.
Young gun Harley Reid will miss the next 2 games with suspension. The ban means Reid is ineligible to win the AFL's Rising Star Award.
The rule's been there for a while. I suppose what's changed is the reportable incidents have changed over the years, so I think there's probably more things you can get done for.
In better news, the Eagles' leading goal kicker Jake Waterman returns from a shoulder complaint. Anna Hay, 7 News.
And Richmond are back on the winners list, defeating the Crows at home without Dustin Martin last night. Everyone's attention now turning to Dusty's 300th game next weekend.
We did win, so he might have to come back through the VFL. So, but in all seriousness, it's a massive week for our club.
I think he'll be pretty chilled. It'll just be another game for Dustin, but obviously we'll make it special for him.
And the Tigers' are confident star midfielder Dion Prestia will shrug off a sore calf for Dusty's big day. David Warner says he couldn't care less about criticism of his selection after starting the T20 World Cup with a half century, passing Aaron Finch as Australia's leading scorer in that format.
It's in one ear out the other. I don't understand why it's always about myself. There's 11 players in the team.
And the tournament has already had its first massive upset. Forced to a super over by the USA, Pakistan's Mohammad Amir conceded 18 runs, including 7 wides. The Americans claimed a 5-run victory, a dream result for the international cricket chiefs, hoping to spread the cricket gospel to the States. Alessandro Circati left Perth as a teenager to pursue his sporting dreams, and today he returned for his first game in his hometown since his departure. He's set to run out for the Socceroos on Tuesday night against Palestine. The 20-year-old is a regular for Italian heavyweights Parma.
Well, to play for the Socceroos here would obviously be a dream. Obviously, being only my second cap would be, something that I couldn't even write when I was, 4 years back. So it'd be an absolute honour and absolute pleasure to play in front of, some family and some friends who haven't actually been able to see me play other than, playing down at, local, Dorrien Gardens or something when I was 14, 15.
Great stuff. The Socceroos arrived in Perth this afternoon after flying in from Bangladesh, where they won 2-0 last night. And you can catch them at HBF Park on Tuesday night. Kick-off is 8:05. A distraught Coco Gauff left Roland Garros in tears, already trailing Iga Swiatek. A bad line call and an overrule were the breaking points for the American in her semi. Into her 4th final in 5 years, Swiatek will play for her 3rd straight French Open title. The world number 1 will face Jasmine Paolini in the final. The 20-year-old Italian defeated 17-year-old Mira Andreeva to reach her maiden Grand Slam final. And in his NBA Finals debut, Boomers guard Josh Green was on the wrong side of a Boston block party last night.
Here comes Josh Green, one man to beat, but it's a 7-footer who blocks it again!
At least Josh played his part in an all-time finals highlight. After 10 games out, this 7-footer return to put the hammer down on Dallas with Jaylen Brown, 107-89. It's the most imposing start to the championship series by the Celtics for a long time. OK, Rick, the Eagles game is live and free on 7 tomorrow from 2:30 p.m. and the 1994 boys, the Premiership guys, lap of honour. And I'm tipping Aussie the Eagle will be well behaved and sweet to go tomorrow.
And I'm tipping the old Eagles boys will be a bit slower than they used to be. So thank you.
There, Rick.
The iconic Holden Commodore is fast disappearing from our roads. A critical shortage of parts forces many to be written off. Owners are desperate to preserve their piece of motoring history, but insurers say they're too expensive to repair.
For Commodore lovers, it's a sad sight. A graveyard for the nation's once top-selling car. Enthusiasts are battling to keep their iconic Australian-made cars on the road, raiding wreckers for vital components amid a critical parts shortage. Even used bumpers, bonnets and doors have doubled in price.
It's cheaper for the insurance company to pay them out these days because it's hard to get the parts and they're so expensive, so they just write off the car.
More than ever, doting owners are fighting to preserve the legend.
Holden Monaro quickly takes the lead. The Kingswood? You're not taking the Kingswood.
Bruce Lethborg has been waiting months for a replacement bumper for his beloved 1992 VP Commodore.
Member's got various cars from the 60s right through to the 90s and 2000s, of course, and yeah, they're all experiencing issues with getting certain mainly panels and trims and switches.
General Motors claims the parts shortage is due to their moulded plastic supplier going into administration. The car company says it's been working with administrators and hopes that production will restart in around 3 months. Commodore tragics are banking on it. What's so good about Commodores?
Aussie. Aussie, oi, oi, oi.
Jackie Quist, 7 News.
Sam Jolly's back with your weekend forecast. How are we looking, Sam?
Well, Rick, we do have another cold front approaching. I'll tell you how it's going to impact our weekend in more detail right after the break. Happy Friday. We have had a dry but overcast end to the working week. The rain cleared overnight and it left us with a foggy morning. It didn't stick around too long. We had a top of 20 degrees in the city this afternoon. Right now it is 15 degrees and the winds are calm. Looking around the metro area today, no rain recorded after 9 a.m. and top temperatures range from just 16 degrees in the hills. We had 21 for Fremantle and the same further south. If we look at the charts, there is a cloud band that is going to deliver a shower or two tomorrow, mostly north of Perth. Then a second cold front will impact Sunday morning and we will get some decent showers. Interstate rain is clearing New South Wales after heavy downpours there, but flooding is still an issue. Sunny in Brisbane tomorrow, showers for Canberra and Melbourne and cloudy in Adelaide. Statewide tomorrow, warm and sunny in our top end, showers for Kalgoorlie, heavy falls for the central west and showers are possible right across the south. So we're getting down to 12 tonight, a high chance of showers tomorrow up to 4 millimetres and a top of 21 degrees. Heavy rain on Sunday up to 10 millimetres and a top of 21. A high chance of showers on Monday, heavier rain Tuesday, more showers on Wednesday. Then we might get a shower or two Thursday and for next Friday. Now for tonight's winning lotto numbers. They are 22, 5, 34, 10, 7, 44 and the SUPs are 21 and 11. Those numbers again are 22, 5, 34, 10, 7, 44 and the SUPs are 21 and 11. Now to Mark Lacroix with your boating and fishing details.
Well, you can really tell we're into the winter months with the weather we're having, but there's still plenty to target around the water. Let's check it out. Expect north to northeasterly winds 15 to 20 knots, seas around a metre and a west to southwesterly swell 1.5 to 2.5 metres. The high tide at Hillary's is around 9:30am, the lows at 8:10pm, similar times in Freo. If you're keen on a surf, there'll still be a bit of swell hanging around into the morning, so there'll be a few waves. Fingers crossed, there's more east in the wind than northerly, so it's not too sloppy. Go early, try Trigg, Alki Moss or Strickland Bay at Rotto. If you're wetting a line, the Coburn Sound's been loaded with scaly mackerel, which has brought in some big mulloway. Beach fishing at Secret Harbour's been the spot to land pink snapper. And in the river, some decent bream as well as juvenile Samson fish have been caught around the bridges in Freo. And check out tonight's viewer picks. 5-year-old Joseph Mansfield reeled in this absolute ripper of a ruby snapper off Exmouth. Pink snapper were also biting locally at City Beach, where Isaac Romeo scored this 77-centimetre beauty. And how good was Zach Skinner's effort with this Spanish mackerel off the coast of Broome? Well done. We'll keep emailing your catches to fishing@7.com.au for your chance to be featured. We love seeing them. I'll catch you next week.
Thanks, Mark. And that's 7 News for this Friday night. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back with updates throughout the evening. Enjoy the rest of your night and weekend here on 7.